Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. In today's tutorial, we're making a boat neck ruffle top that can be worn both on or off the shoulder. Versatile, feminine, and quick. The perfect summertime weekend make. Speaking of, if you're ready to get started on some sunshine makes, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of modern crochet tutorials and patterns, perfect for the summer with even more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 200 grams of yarn, and that's 450 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order. Enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you prefer sweet desserts or savory. I always love me a savory dessert. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5mm hook and start off by making a chain that starts 1 inch underneath our underarm down to where like the bottom of this top to be, so cropped or full length. I'd like for mine to be full length, so I'm going to start by making a chain 50, and that's roughly 12 inches or 30 centimeters. But I actually already have my underarm portion already completed, so I'm going to be doing a small sample size with you. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to do a half double crochet row. Start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then yarn over and inserting our hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, bring our hook down, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. That is our first half double crochet. Once more, yarn over into that next chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3, and continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain, leaving the last one. We've made our way down with our half double crochet row, leaving the last one. Now into that last stitch, we're all going to do an increase of 2 half double crochets. So all that's going to be is 2 half double crochets into that last chain. So there's my first, and into that same last chain with my second half double crochet. Now our row 1 is complete. We should all have 1 more stitch, then chains out you made. Now our back loop slip stitch row is our following row, so chain 1, flip our work, and from here 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So finding the last stitch from our previous row, we're going to find that back loop and insert in through there. When we have those 2 loops on our hook, yarn over and gently pull through both of those loops. We want to make sure that we're not tugging too tightly, otherwise the following row can be too tight to work into. So into that next stitch, insert into that back loop, yarn over, and gently pull through both. Continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Everyone's row 2 is complete. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows, now all within the back loops. So getting started on our row 3, which is our half double crochet row, chain 2, flip your work, and put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, closing off the row with an increase. So all together, yarn over, into that first stitch's back loop, we're going to insert with 1 back loop half double crochet, and continue with 1 back loop half double crochet, leaving that last stitch. Our row 3 is nearly complete. We should have all left that last stitch, so into that last stitch, everyone will be doing an increase of 2 back loop half doubles. So let's just 2 back loop half doubles into that same last stitch. Now, our following row is a back loop slip stitch row, so simply chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. From here, we're all going to repeat our 2 previous rows until we have a portion that can stretch, because remember it will have a decent amount of stretch to it, from mid-underarm over to the corner of our underarm. Then I'll meet everyone back right after an even number row. Then we can complete our underarm together. But I actually have my first underarm portion completed. I have a total of 4 rows. My width is roughly about an inch or 2 centimeters that is unstretched. Now, once we're ready to continue on with our underarm portion, we're going to do our following row, which is going to be a back loop half double crochet, but leave the last stitch because we're going to do another type of increase into there. We've made our way down with our back loop half double crochet row. Into that last stitch, we're now all going to do an increase of 3 back loop half double crochets. So all that is going to be is 3 back loop half doubles all into that last stitch. We're doing this different increase so that we can get a really smooth curve that leads up to the front of our body. But once we have our 3 back loop half double crochets into that last stitch, we are going to need to increase into our slip stitch row as well. So how we're going to do that is chain 2. That first chain will count as a stitch for the following row, and that second chain is going to be our turning chain and flip our work. Now into the second chain from our hook, start with our first back loop slip stitch. So go ahead and insert in through there, yarn over, pull through everything, and continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Now what we're all going to do from here is continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we now have a portion that can stretch from mid-underarm over to the front of our body, roughly where a bra strap or a tank top strap would lay. And I'll meet you back right after an odd number row, or along the top, and then we can work on the width of our body portion from there. But just as a really quick tip, when it comes to doing the half double crochet rows for this section, we should have 2 more stitches than our previous row, and then our slip stitch rows should have 1 more stitch than our previous row. We are back, and now the entirety of my underarm portion is complete. Now I have a total of 7 rows. This width is roughly 2 inches or 5 centimeters unstretched. Now what we're going to do from here is make a chain that reaches up to roughly mid-chest, or where we'd like the top of this piece to sit when it's on. So making sure that our tail end is still staying 1 inch underneath our underarm, I went ahead and made a chain 8. Now that chain 8 is roughly about an inch and a half or 4 centimeters. Now from here, we're just going to do back loop slip and back loop half double crochet rows with no increases and no decreases across our chest. So let's do the first row together. When we have our chain, we are going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So insert, yarn over, pull through both, and from here, continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain. Once we reach the body, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch to reach the end of the row. So we've went ahead and completed our first row for the body, which was our slip stitch row. Now from here, all we're going to do, since we're now all along the bottom, is chain 2, flip our work. Put 1 back loop half into every stitch. The following row, 1 back loop slip into every stitch. We're just going to continue to repeat those 2 rows with no increases and no decreases, working our way across our chest until it can stretch over to the front of our body on the other side, so roughly where our other bra strap or tank top strap would lay. Then I'll meet you back right after a slip stitch row or along the bottom so we can finish up with our underarm together from there. We are back with the width of my front panel. Now I have a total of 36 rows. That's roughly 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters unstretched. Now we're going to finish this off with our underarm. So first things first, insert your stitch marker into the same amount of chains that we made that led up to the top of our piece. So for those of you that have my numbers, I made a chain 8. So on this side, from the top, I inserted my stitch marker into the 8th stitch. Then from here, we should all be along the bottom. We're going to be putting 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 3 stitches right before our stitch marker. Now we are basically going to be mirroring our first underarm portion. So with the last 3 stitches in this row, we're all going to do a decrease of 3 back loop half doubles. So yarn over. Into that third to last back loop, pull through. Second to last back loop, pull through, and last back loop, pull through for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 5 loops. Now our following row is going to be a slip stitch row that starts with a decrease, so chain 1 and flip your work. And to do our decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches, we're going to insert our hook into that first stitch's back loop, pull through, into that next stitch's back loop, and when we have these 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. From here, continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then just to do our decrease of 3 once more, at the end of this slip stitch row, chain 2, flip our work, put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 3. We've made our way back with our third underarm row. We should have all left our last 3 stitches. Now we're going to close off with a decrease of 3 back loop half doubles, just like we did for the first underarm row. So start with a yarn over, insert your hook into that third to last stitch's back loop, pull through. Next stitch's back loop, pull through. Last stitch's back loop, pull through for 5 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 5. Then our slip stitch row is going to start off the same way as our previous one. It's going to start with a decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches, then just continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we have the same amount of rows as the second half of our underarm portion. Now, I actually already have the amount of rows that I need, which was just 3 for me. So now we're going to get started on the rest of our underarm portion. So for the following section, our slip stitch rows didn't have any increases or decreases. So we're going to chain 1, flip our work. 1 back loop slip goes into every stitch. Then for the following row, put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 2, and I'll show you how to do that decrease together. So we've just completed our slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases, and also made our way back up with our back loop half doubles, leaving the last 2 stitches. Now we're going to do a decrease of 2 back loop half doubles. So what we're going to do is yarn over, inserting your hook into that second to last back loop, pull through, and also into that last back loop, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4. And that's it. From here, continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we have the same amount of rows as the other underarm portion, and when we do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so we are back. The entirety of our front panel is complete. My total width is 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters, unstretched, and once we have one panel completed, we're going to be making a second panel that is exactly the same. Then once we do, we can seam up the sides and get started on our sleeves. So once we have both panels completed, we are going to seam up the sides. We're going to first make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning the ribbing that we have for both panels are along the outside. Then insert your hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Now we're all going to do an outside loop slip stitch seam to make it look like another back loop slip stitch row. So we're going to pull our working yarn through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, then start by finding that first stitch into the front panel and insert only into that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop, then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. Once more into that next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop, then yarn over, pull through all 3. And continue this until we don't have any more stitches left, but do not do a chain up of 1 cut because we can work straight into the sleeve prep from there. Now that we have just made our seam all the way up, we're now going to work into our sleeve prep row. So what we're going to do is start by putting 2 single crochets into every side half double and 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, making our way up our underarm. So since we didn't cut, we're all going to chain 1. And finding our first side row, we're all going to find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets. So there is 1, and then into that same top loop with a second, and don't forget to insert a stitch marker into that first single crochet just so we know where this starts and ends. Then our following side row is a side slip stitch row, so find that top loop and insert with 1 single. Let's do this again. This is my next side row, which should be a side half double crochet for everyone. Find that top loop and insert with 2 singles, so there's 1 and then there's 2. Next side row is a side slip, so find that top loop and insert with 1. Continue this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into. We've just made our way up our underarm portion. Now we have some regular stitches to work into, so simply put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Now the total amount of single crochets that we're going to have for this underarm prep portion needs to be in multiples of 3. So if you guys need to add an additional stitch or 2 into that last stitch to make sure that we have stitches in multiples of 3, go ahead and get that done, and I'll meet you back at this top corner. So this side of my sleeve prep row is completed. I do have a stitch count that is in multiples of 3. Now from here, we're going to make a chain that is an odd number of chains that reaches around our shoulder over to the other top corner that we have for our panel. I went ahead and already measured mine out. I need roughly 6 inches or 15 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain 25. But before we make our chain, we all want to make sure to insert a stitch marker into that last stitch that we made into the body. And now that we have our chain, we're going to attach it to the top corner stitch of our other panel. So I flipped my work over, and now from here, I'm going to single crochet it into that top corner stitch of our panel. So making sure that our chain isn't twisted. Into that top corner stitch, insert with 1 single. Now that single crochet counts as our first stitch, but also as a connector. And don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch, just so you know this side starts and ends. Then from here, continue with one single crochet into every stitch. And remember that if we added an extra stitch or two on this side to make sure that we had multiples of 3, we're going to have to do it on this side as well. And then once we reach our underarm, 2 single crochets into every side half double, 1 single crochet into every side slip, making our way all the way down, then slip stitch into that chain space. We should have the same amount of stitches on both sides of our armhole. We are back and our prep row is complete, and I did cut right after I completed it. We do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the top of that last stitch as well, so we know where this side ends. And now from here, we're going to get started on the width of our sleeve. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to insert our hook into our stitch marker that we have that's nearest to our chain. So I'm actually going to flip my work upside down and insert my hook into my stitch marker stitch. I went ahead and inserted my yarn onto my hook, and now we're going to do our Suzette stitches into our chain. So we're going to pull through, and then we're all going to start by finding that first chain. This is mine right here. We're going to find that chain and insert with just 1 single and 1 double crochet all into that first chain. So here is a single crochet and into that same chain with a double crochet. That is one of our Suzette stitches. Once when that's completed, we're always going to be skipping that following chain because that double crochet counts as that stitch. If we're working directly into that stitch, we will be accidentally increasing. So we will skip that following stitch and then into the next with a single and a double. So skip one, into the next with a single, into that same with a double. Pretty simple. We're just going to continue doing this until we have 2 chains left. So we've made our way down with our first row. We should all have 2 chains left. Now all we're going to do is skip that second to last chain and into the last, insert with 1 half double crochet. So yarn over, skip the second to last and into the next, which should be our last, insert with a half double. And now our row 1 is complete. Now connecting it into the base, we are always going to skip that next stitch into the base and slip stitch into the second. So that next stitch into the base should be our stitch marker stitch. Then into that next stitch, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Now to work our way up to the following row, we are going to slip stitch into that following stitch into the base and flip our work. Now none of the slip stitches into the base actually count as a stitch, so starting our increase row into that first stitch, which should be the top of that half double, we're all going to do an increase of 4 half double crochets. So yarn over, into the top of that last stitch from our previous row, insert with 4 half doubles. So there's 1, there is 2, there is 3, and there's 4. Then from here we're going to do our Suzette stitch till we reach 2 stitches left at the end of the row. So we're going to skip that next stitch into that next, which should be our single crochet from our previous row, and insert with a single and a double. Once more, skip 1 stitch into the next with a single and a double. I'll meet you back when we have 2 stitches left. So we've made our way down with our row 2. Now we should all have 2 stitches left, and into that last stitch we're going to do an increase of 3 half double crochets. So yarn over, skip that second to last and into the last, insert with 1 half double, insert with a second half double, then insert with a third half double crochet. Now we're going to connect it into the base the same way that we did our previous row. So I'm just going to flip this over so it's a little bit easier to see. Now all we're going to do is count up the next 2 available stitches into the base. There's 1, there's 2, slip stitch into that second stitch into the base. And to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base. None of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch, and flip our work. And now it's just going to be a repeat of our previous row until we are worked into our stitch marker stitches along the bottom that's nearest to the seam. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We've made our way all the way down until we're worked into our stitch marker stitches. Now from here, we're going to do the same exact rows. So every row will have an increase the same way that we did for these, but now just working off of the body. So all we're going to do is at the beginning of the row, chain 2, flip our work. We want to make sure that we're flipping our work. Do the same exact increase row, making our way all the way around. Then slip stitch into that second chain, then repeat for the total length of the sleeve that you want. When we have that completed, I will meet you guys back right after we do a chain up a 1 and cut. We are back. I've just completed my sleeve. I have a total of 4 rows that is worked off the body, and I went ahead and repeated the same thing on the other side. Now what we're going to do from here is just clean up the top and then we'll be all done. So first things first, we're all going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then insert your hook into any one of the stitches or side rows that we have along the top of our piece, and all we're going to do is into our side rows, put 2 single crochets into every side half double, 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, and then once we get on top of the sleeves, simply put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Go ahead and make your way all the way around. But just as a really quick tip, this single crochet row is going to be as wide as this portion can stretch. So once it's completed, try it on. If it's a little bit too tight, redo some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, redo some stitches with a tighter grip. Our single crochet row along the top of our piece is complete. Everything is fitting nicely, so now the last thing we're going to do is a back loop single crochet row. So right after we've slip stitched into that chain space, simply chain 1, and working in the same direction as our previous row, put 1 back loop single crochet into every stitch. Then do a chain up 1 and cut at the end of the row. Our back loop single crochet row is complete, and now we are all done. The last thing we have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, y'all. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!